In this video I will teach you how to play the London system. This is my second video in the London system series, and in this video we are going to take a look at the London mainline when black plays the early rook e8. So the London mainline that we are taking a look at is the position where black plays this pawn to e6. And of course, if you're not familiar with the London, the main idea with the London is to start off with d4, knight f3, bishop f4. I like to play them in that order, and then black has multiple options, but here we are especially looking at those where black plays d5 and e6, leaving his own bishop within his pawn chain. So we are going to play e3, of course, because we want to develop the bishop on the next move. Most of the time black will play bishop to d6. This is the most played move, challenging your light squared bishop, which you can always drop back, of course, because if black takes this, you are now having an extra rook into your king side attack. So that is good for white, so black usually doesn't take this. So if they attack your bishop, you can drop back. In this video we are also going to take a look at what to do if black plays the more passive move with bishop e7 as well, because there are many amazing tricks against bishop e7. So first bishop d6, we drop back, and then it is black to move. Here again black can do multiple things. Sometimes they will play a move like c5, you can always protect this pawn with c3, and sometimes they are going to castle, which I think is the most played move. If they castle, you can develop the bishop. They might attack your center with something like pawn to c5, you can always defend this. Pushing this is not a good idea, because of course we can just drop back, and black kind of lost his attacking chances here in the center. So they will most likely play knight c6, attacking this as well. Then we can develop this knight here, and this is really the main setup you have to keep in mind for the London system, this triangle, these knights, and then these bishops, and this bishop can also be here, depending on what variation we played. And then in the London, the most popular move is b6. I took a look at that in my previous video, so definitely check that out, because there are many amazing lines to completely destroy black if they play b6, which is the most played move. But here I wanted to take a look at the second most played move, which is rook e8, and how you can destroy this. So as always, my rule for the London system is don't castle too early, because we are going to play all of the most aggressive lines, all of the tricks, and we'll try to get an early advantage instead of just playing castling and playing it safe. So here we are going to play knight e5. The reason why is, again, if you castle, black is trying to push this. That's what he has been doing all along, playing all these pieces here to prepare this push. So that is why we are going to put our knight here in the center. And this knight here is a really tricky move as well, because there are many ways that black can go wrong. Also, by placing the knight here, we are blockading this pawn. It can no longer move forward. So we stopped the main plan from black in these positions. Black to move, usually you will get this move queen c7, because black really wants to get rid of this knight. And now they have 1, 2, 3 attackers, and we only have 2 defenders on our knight. So that's not so good. We will have to defend it yet again. Of course, they cannot really capture it any earlier, because if they capture it with the knight, they would have gotten this pawn fork, and we are winning material in that variation. Maybe they could have taken it with the bishop, but then you can always capture with this pawn, and then this knight, as you can see, doesn't have a lot of good squares, so it has to go back. And here you can just replace your old knight with the new knight that went from the b1 square all the way here. We have this strong pawn in the center, and we can just castle on the next move. Just to show you that capturing this early on is not so good for black, so most likely you will see something like queen c7, and they are trying to put more pressure here. Well, you can simply defend your knight with this move f4. And we are playing f4 and not knight to f3. Because if you play knight to f3, of course you are defending this with the knight, but this knight also had some other purpose here to defend this e4 square. And now that the knight is in front of our pawn, you can no longer push this. So that is why we want to push first, and then later you can always drop this knight to f3 as well, and you will have this reinforced structure. So again, capturing this leads to material loss for black because of this fork. Capturing this with the bishop is also not a good idea. This loses as well, because here you can take with the f pawn, this knight has to go back, and then there is a move like queen h5. And this is actually a line that you can get, because if we take a look at this position, most players capture here, which we will take a look at, but sometimes they capture here as well. And this has been played. And then in the London, you always have these early king-side attacks. So for example here, queen h5, this is immediately a checkmate threat on h7. Well, not checkmate since they can go here, but it will lead to checkmate eventually. If they play a random move, for example b6, you can take, and then in these lines you will activate this bishop as well, and then try to go for a checkmate here on the back rank, taking away this square. But of course, white can also try to prevent this, most likely with g6 or h6, one of those moves. If they play something like g6, you can always park your queen here, and simply we can bring over this knight, and we can also push this pawn. So it's really hard to find anything for black. For example, this knight here, let's say they develop the bishop, knight g5, and this is already a checkmate threat. It's hard to deal with this. Maybe some defensive move like knight here. You can also get your rook involved, just making moves for black, not necessarily the best moves, but just to show you, there is a lot of pressure here. Even moves like rook f6, and then we will be able to double the rooks, and black is so cramped in this position. It's like nothing they can do really matters, because all of their pieces are stuck. Maybe something like queen here, for example, and then we can double the rooks. And as you can see, there's almost nothing black can do. They can try defending it like this, but once all of your pieces are in position, and these lines, you will always have sacrifices. For example, with bishop takes here. And if they capture here, we actually have a checkmate, because we can lift over this rook. And that is just an amazing maneuver, because there is legit nothing that black can do. If they just make any move, we're gonna go here, and yeah, the checkmate is unavoidable. We're always gonna checkmate. Even if they try like to give away the knight, this is still gonna lead to checkmate. So all of this just to show that in this position, after we play this move f4, this is bad because it loses a piece, and this is bad just simply because of this variation, where we will activate the queen, activate the knight, and then also activate the rook as well. And it's just devastating for black. So that's a really good thing about playing the London. Many of these lines are really forced for black. Black doesn't have many choices, so they always have to go down this narrow path, this one specific line in which we also have tactics. So here the only real thing for black is to try and capture here in the center, or to play this move knight to d7. And I first wanted to address this move knight to d7 as well, because this is also one of the most played moves in the position. So the goal from black is simply to add another attacker to this knight. So that's why many players will play knight back here. They want to attack this knight and eliminate it. But here we have beautiful moves, and again, a really common tactic in the London: bishop takes h7, check. If the queen takes, if the king takes, queen goes in, queen h5 check. For example, a move like king g8, and now all of a sudden black's in trouble, because they moved this rook earlier on in the game, and now this f7 pawn is no longer defended. So a move like this, check with the queen, and then you can even grab this rook for free. And of course, this is already devastating for black. There is no immediate checkmate, but black just dropped the rook, so black is losing. And this was mainly to show you that just how tricky this position is. If you play your knight in, you will almost always get something like this, and this is so tricky. This doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. It's so easy to go wrong with black. The best attempt is probably something like taking here first. There are multiple approaches. I would recommend taking back like this. Again, capturing here is devastating because of these variations, and this is almost exactly the same as we have seen before, with the knight coming in and then also castling. So it's important just to remember these general IDs. You never have to memorize these exact lines, but you have to know these IDs. So capturing this is not good. Again, if they try to go with the knight back afterwards, you also have this sacrifice. And that is actually the most played line. So in this variation, the most played one is capture, capture, and then they try to go back with the knight. But even in that line, there is bishop takes, queen in, king back, bam, we are taking here and we are winning the rook as well. just to show this is so devastating, this variation for black. And there's not much else they can try, maybe something like b6, but then again you can always castle and we still will have many of these lines because moves like knight d7 are still often played as well. So that is how you can completely destroy black if they play this variation with rook to e8. Next up, I also wanted to take a look at a different line where black plays this bishop to e7, but they still play this pawn to e6. There are also other variations where they develop the bishop earlier or play an early knight c6, and we will look at that in a separate video as well. But here I wanted to show you how you can also destroy black if they play this bishop to e7. So quite simply, we are going to continue with the regular London plan. They can castle, they can also play c5, and then this. I mean, it's always the same pattern from white, so really easy to learn this. Again, don't castle too early, just develop your pieces, wait for this move. And the main difference with bishop e7 between bishop d6 is this d6 always challenges your bishop, which can lead to a trade. e7 is just a bit more passive from black, but it is a move that is played quite a lot. So what are we going to do in this position? Black to move will usually play knight c6, and here we are going to play knight e5. Again, of course, you can castle, and many players will castle here as white, but I recommend always going for the tricky lines and the London. So we're going to play knight e5, and this already sets up some nasty traps. The most played line with black, again, is to capture your knight. One of the reasons black also does this is because they know if they just play a random move, you can always back this up, and it's going to be hard to get this knight out of the center. So many people will capture your knight, which is a good move, but this will lead into our trap line. So we're going to capture with the pawn, and again, if you take a look at this knight, it doesn't have that many squares, so they have to go back here to d7. Again, don't castle. We are going to play for tricks. We are going to play this move h4, and we are going to start an immediate kingside attack. And this h4 move is really important in this variation where the bishop is on e7. Because if the bishop is here, you don't want to move your h-pawn because you still need it to take back on g3, and that is a way how you can remember this. You can just remember that if the bishop is here, that means I can push this h-pawn and create an attack. Of course, we are actually giving away this pawn because we cannot capture this with the rook, of course, otherwise we would be losing. But if black takes this is a little trap we have. We can sacrifice the bishop. For example, king takes, and then queen h5 check, and then rook h4 check, and we also have a checkmate threat. So black cannot capture this pawn, and most people won't capture, but sometimes you will get a capture here. For example, f6 is the most played by black, and then we can play queen to h5. Queen to h5 is a really good move in many of these lines simply because you can see our bishops are already here, and we will destroy black rather quickly. If they try to play something like g6, that is immediately losing because we have a bishop sacrifice here. Check with the queen, the rook goes in, check with the queen, and then we can get this rook activation. And this will lead to something like this, which is a beautiful checkmate. A better move from black is to play something like f5, because this can block our bishop's diagonal, but we're going to go all in with the attack. And the main idea with g4, of course, is they cannot capture us because of takes, and then if they go here, checkmate with the bishop. So they cannot capture us. It's hard to find a move for black. Maybe something like this, because our queen is a little bit cramped. You can always play queen h6 in these lines. And then we can start exchanging to open up the position. If they recapture like this, we actually have a beautiful fork on these two pieces. If they recapture like this, you can sacrifice the bishop. And if they take it, now we are going to activate the rook. The king is pretty much stuck. It has to go here. And then again, we are going to play this to win material. So really hard to defend this from black. In this position, of course, f6 is the most played move, but it doesn't have to be played. Maybe you'll think, well, they can also play something like h6 here as well. Multiple lines, but we are going to use our queen again. If they try to go for g6, you can always remember the sacrifice. The king has to go somewhere, take, the king has to go here, and then just get this rook involved and you will have a nice checkmate. So that doesn't work. Again, hard to find a move for black. If black just plays a passive move, you're gonna go all in on this enemy king side. Let's just say black develops. We're gonna go all in. And that is also why we played this h4 move. If they capture here, this is an immediate checkmate because this pawn has to be here defending. And it's hard to really find the move for black. Let's just say they attack us, for example. You can even ignore this and you can capture here. If they take the bishop, this is devastating because you can capture, and this is a checkmate threat. And if they capture this with the king, you can do rook check, and this is the only variation. You can even take with the bishop here, and then this will be a checkmate as well. So just to say, if they don't do anything, they are losing. If they capture us, they are losing. I mean, if they play something like g6, for example, again, sacrifice the bishop, check, check here with the queen, and we can even push and have this checkmate threat. So you can easily destroy these bishop e7 lines if they take your pawn on e5. And the last variation I wanted to take a look at is the same opening with bishop e7. And then I wanted to show you what you can do in this line after we play our knight here. So as I just showed you, if they take this, you can play the previous variation and destroy them. What to do if they just captured this? So you can capture back, and then usually you will still get this knight to capture here as well, which are many of the same concepts. Of course, they don't have to play this, but again, this is not possible because you would capture the knight for free, and it's hard to find any good plan. Even if they go for something like this, you can always just replace your knight with the other knight as well. So those are just straightforward plans, but I wanted to show you another trick here. So this line, if they capture, again, the knight has to go back. Queen h5 immediately is also playable here instead of h4. If they play g6, always park the queen here. For example, rook e8, and then you can bring this knight in. And you can already see we're gonna have a checkmate here on h7. They can try something like bishop f8. Of course, if they don't, we just have this checkmate. So if they capture your knight, you can just recapture with the bishop, and then this queen already has to move. If they attack this, first we're gonna defend with f4, and you will see there's not really anything going on for black, and then we will just simply threaten this checkmate here. If they exchange the knight, we are gonna again threaten this checkmate, and there is nothing they can do. They will always get this checkmate. So they have to play something like bishop back to f8 to attack the queen. You can just drop the queen back to h3. She is still having a lot of influence here. Bishop g7, knight in, and just always play for the attack. As I said, don't castle, just play for the attack. Knight g5, h6, you can go back. You might think, well, you're going in and then you're going back, but this is a really good move, of course, because now they have a weak pawn here, and we can take this with the bishop. So that is sometimes why you have to play moves. You have to play a move knowing black will be able to defend, just because you want to create a weakness in their camp. And now this pawn structure is so much weaker, because here we can always sack the bishop in some lines. Sometimes you can take here. Black will most likely have to play something like king h7, otherwise they are going to lose this pawn. And just a funny move here, you don't have to play this, but you could even do something like knight g5 check, because of course if they take with the queen, you capture here and they can't recapture here. Just to show you that black is already in a lot of trouble. And here you can play something like rook in. You can also castle. There are a couple of variations. Let's just say we're going to castle in this line, but this black position is really terrible. And if black tries to play something here, like for example with the bishop, you can just play normal moves, develop your rook, develop this rook, and let's just say knight c5, we can drop the bishop back here so we still have influence and also stop these knight squares. And the main thing I want to show you is at this point, like black is already gonna run out of moves. Let's just make a queen move. Like black doesn't have any plan. All of these squares are covered, the knight can go in, this bishop is stuck defending, this bishop is stuck. We can always park our knight here as well. So just a terrible position for black to be in, even though there is nothing immediate from white. But still, as I said, for example, knight here is always a move you can play, and then you can reroute the knight, and sometimes you can even play fancy moves, like here, for example, if they capture you, you would win the queen, and if they don't capture you, we're going to completely destroy black. So I would say something, let's just say something like queen e7, because if they don't do anything, let's say they just play a random move, they are in a lot of trouble because of this check. And then of course this is coming, and if they play something like this, well, there are multiple moves here, queen e3 for example, and we can go in with the bishop, we can go in with the queen. So amazing stuff. If they play something like a queen move, you can also jump in with the knight here, attacking this. They will have to play even more defensive, and then bam, we can take here, take this, and this king is already in so much trouble. They will have to do something like queen here, and you can just keep attacking. And as I said, in these lines there is no immediate checkmate, but you can already see we can bring in the rooks, we can sacrifice this bishop. This is all devastating, and the engine even says +7 here for white. So you can see it's really hard to play this from the white side. So now you should be able to know how you can completely destroy black if they are in the main line with the rook e8, and also if they are in the main line with bishop e7. If you want to learn more about the London system, I have a playlist on the London, also how you can destroy the early b6, and more videos are coming on this soon as well. That's it for this video. Definitely subscribe if you enjoyed, leave a like, leave a comment. I read all comments. And that's it for this video. I will see you in the next one. Bye.